Thank you for your purchase. This video will help guide you through the installation process. These are the suggested tools for installation: Phillips head screwdriver, tape measure, leveling device, wire cutters, adjustable wrench, and power drill. This is the antenna. It allows the remote control to communicate with the shade. While it is okay to move or reposition the antenna, it cannot be cut or trimmed in any way. Before you begin, you will need to determine your type of installation. If you are installing your shade on a wall or beam, as shown here, you are performing a wall installation. If you are installing your shade underneath a beam or overhang, as shown here, you are performing a ceiling installation. Before you mount the brackets, consider the following tips. Your shade comes with a total of 3 valance brackets. You must install at least 2 of them. The third bracket is optional but is recommended for shades larger than 6 feet wide. The 2 required brackets should be installed near the ends of the shade. Important: do not install the valance brackets in the first 2 inches of either side of the shade. If you choose to install the third bracket, install at or near the center of your shade. When installing your valance brackets, you must allow at least a 1-inch clearance behind or above the bracket to allow the shade to click into place. It is important to install your brackets into wood studs. If wood studs are not available, you will need to use the included anchors. It is very important that your valance brackets are installed level with each other. If your brackets are crooked, or if they are not level with each other, your shade will not install correctly. An installation template has been provided to help you align your pilot holes. To use your template, temporarily adhere it to the mounting surface, making sure that the template is flat and straight. Hold a bracket up to the template to mark your pilot holes. You will need to place a bracket on both ends of the shade and near the center if you are using the third optional bracket. Remember, the valance brackets cannot be installed on the extreme edges of the shade. You must allow 2 inches of clearance from the ends. Mark and drill your pilot holes. If you are doing a wall installation, your tabs must be facing down towards the ground. If you are doing a ceiling installation, the tabs must be facing you towards the front of the shade. Install your mounting brackets using 2 screws per bracket. Now it is time to install your shade. For a wall installation, start by hooking the top of the valance on the top of the brackets. Then rotate the shade down until you hear it lock into place. For a ceiling installation, start by hooking the back of the shade on the back of the brackets. Then rotate the front of the shade up and lock it into place. When clicking your shade into place, it may help to use an object such as a flathead screwdriver to press the thumb latch. You may now plug in your shade. Your shade plugs into a standard 110 volt electrical outlet. Your remote control battery is included in your hardware kit. Install the battery with the positive side facing the back of the remote. Your remote control has 5 buttons: up, stop, down, channel increase, and channel decrease. The indicator lights at the top of the remote show you what channel you are operating. The remote can operate up to 5 shades, 1 shade per channel. The top indicator light is channel 1, the next one down is channel 2, followed by channel 3, 4, and 5. Your shade comes pre-programmed to operate on channel 1. To change the channel you are operating, press the channel increase button or the channel decrease button. When all 5 channel buttons are lit, your remote will operate all 5 channels at once. When you roll your shade up, it will automatically stop at a predetermined point. This is called the top limit. When you roll the shade down, it will also stop automatically at a given point. This is called the bottom limit. The factory default top limit is about 4 inches from the top of the shade. The factory default bottom limit is about 96 inches from the valance. Both the top limit and the bottom limit can be changed. If you would like to change the top and/or bottom limit, you will need to complete these steps. If you are happy with the default top and bottom limit, you can skip this process. Your motor will make beeping sounds during many programming steps. These beeps let you know that signals are being received. Therefore, we recommend keeping background noise to a minimum and try to stand as close to the shade as possible when programming. To change your top and bottom limits, you will need to get your shade into limit setting mode. Keep in mind that you must set both your top and bottom limit to complete this process. Make sure your remote is set to channel 1. Using a paper clip or similar device, push the programming button on the back of the remote. Press the up button, beep, then press the programming button again. The motor will beep 3 times and the fabric will jog. You are now in limit setting mode. Note, you will need to press all 3 buttons on the remote within 10 seconds of each other. Using your up and down buttons, get your shade to your ideal top limit location. Press and hold the stop button until the fabric jogs. Using the up and down buttons, get your shade to your ideal bottom limit. Press and hold the stop button until the fabric jogs. Your shade will exit limit setting mode automatically. Note, you must set both top and bottom limits to exit limit setting mode. Your shade includes a remote control holder that allows you to mount your remote control to a wall or beam. Note, if you mount your remote control outdoors, make sure the remote is never exposed to water or direct sunlight. The remote control is not waterproof. To complete this step, you will need the remote control bracket pictured here. Using the 2 remote control bracket screws, install the bracket with the narrow side of the bracket against the wall or beam. Now, slide the remote control holder over the bracket and slide your remote control into the holder. Your shade includes cable tie-down systems to keep your shade secured during mild wind conditions. If you will be using your shade indoors or do not want to use the cable tie-down system, you have completed your installation. If you do want to use the cable tie-down systems, the following steps will need to be completed. Begin by screwing the cable into the valance. If the cable tie-downs cannot be fixed in a straight line underneath the valance, the tie-down system will not function properly. Next, lower your shade to the bottom limit. Make a horizontal mark underneath both bottom tube plugs. Thread your cable through the bottom tube plug and make a vertical mark where the cable intersects the horizontal mark. You may need to roll the fabric up to complete this step. You will next install the cable bracket pictured here. Begin by removing the cable bolt and cable nut if necessary. Then align the cable bracket directly under the horizontal mark and centered on the intersection with the vertical mark. Use the provided 1-inch screws and install your bracket. Loosen the bracket lock screw. Thread the cable through the cable bolt. Pull the cable taut. Slide the nut over the bottom of the cable, then insert the cable bolt into the cable bracket. Tighten both the bracket lock screw and the cable bolt nut. Cut any excess cable slack underneath the cable bracket with wire cutters. If you purchased multiple shades and would like to program one of your remotes to operate multiple shades, keep watching to learn how. If this does not apply to you, your installation and programming is complete. Before programming multiple shades to work on a single remote, make sure you set the top and bottom limits for each shade using its original remote. To begin this process, you will need to determine which shade and remote you would like to make your primary shade and remote. That is, which remote you will add other shades to on alternate channels such as 2, 3, 4, or 5. Place your primary remote on channel 2. Now set the secondary remote on channel 1. Be careful to remember which remote goes with each shade. This process will copy the channel 1 frequency from your secondary remote to channel 2 on your primary remote. On the secondary remote, press the programming button once. Then press it again. Then on the primary remote, press the programming button once. The motor will beep 3 times and the fabric will jog, confirming that the frequency has been copied onto your primary remote. Make sure to push all 3 buttons within 10 seconds of each other. You should now be able to operate your primary shade on channel 1 and your secondary shade on channel 2 of your primary remote. You can also operate both shades simultaneously if you highlight all 5 channels on your primary remote. You can add additional shades to the remote by selecting other unused channels on your primary remote and repeating this process. If something went wrong during your programming process, keep watching for additional help. If you want to erase all top and bottom limits, follow these steps. Begin by making sure your remote is set to the correct channel for that shade. Push the programming button on the back of the remote. Then push the down button. Then the programming button again. The motor will beep 3 times and the fabric will jog. Remember, all 3 buttons must be pushed within 10 seconds of each other. You can now enter limit setting mode as shown earlier in this instructional video. If your remote no longer operates your shade correctly, you can reset your shade and remote. This process will also erase any top and bottom limits you may have set. This is a 2-step process. To erase the remote frequency, begin by pressing the programming button. Then press the stop button. Then press the programming button again. The motor will beep 3 times and the fabric will jog. Before you begin, make sure your remote is set to the channel you want your shade to operate on, usually channel 1. You will now need to find the green reset button located next to the antenna. Make sure your shade is plugged in before you start this process. Once you have located this button, press it for about 1 second. Once you release the button, the motor will beep 5 times and the fabric will jog. Then press the programming button twice for about 1 second each time. The motor will beep after each button press. Press the down button on the remote. The motor will beep 4 times and the fabric will jog. You should now be able to operate your shade on channel 1. We recommend setting the top and bottom limits as shown earlier in this video. For additional help, please see the troubleshooting section shown here of your instruction manual located on page 8.